Welcome to Module 4. This is Mini Lecture 1. A few housekeeping things that I want to point out before we move on. First of all, in Module 4, there are a number of external videos that are exceptionally good, and I wanted to include those in our lectures. They're very short, dealing with the European Union, what does it mean, the Schengen zone, those are in one video, and then the issue of Brexit. So make sure that you watch those, make sure that you take notes from them. Those will appear on the quizzes and in the quick write assignment. Okay, so having done that, let's move on here. So what I'm going to do here is, first of all, I'm going to ask this question. So what is Europe and what makes Europe Europe? One of the things that is different about Europe than any other region we're going to look at is that Europe is an ambiguous zone. In terms of a continent, really, we can talk about the Eurasian land mass. And then people often ask, well, why is Europe separate from that? Why do we call it Europe? And historically, there are a lot of good reasons for that that are, to some degree, outside the purview of this class. That's more of a historical geography examination. What I do want to talk about, though, is what generally today makes Europe Europe. And the first thing is that we have to understand that its boundaries are largely physiographic. That means that there are natural features that then tie into, for the most part, political boundaries. The other thing we can say is that Europe has become Europe largely because of its cultural heritage, its language, and to a large degree its cohesiveness. So let's take a quick look. From the standpoint of where is Europe, I'm going to make this fairly simple. Europe is bounded by the Caspian, the Black, and then the Mediterranean and Atlantic. So we see water bodies. That's part one. Okay, so again, the Caspian and Black Sea, and then of course the Atlantic and the Mediterranean. The other thing, though, that we have to understand is that there are two major mountain ranges that are often used to define its boundary, and then the Ural River we're going to throw in there. So right here, between the Caspian and Black Sea, are the Caucasus. This is a mountain range that runs essentially east-west. Here, running right through western Russia, are the Ural Mountains. And so the Urals, the Caucasus, the Caspian and the Black really define that boundary. The other way that we can kind of understand this is Turkey divides it to the south. And so Constantinople, what is today Istanbul, there were the gates to Asia, and that's really where we saw that divide. And what we can also see is that when we look at Russia, Russia extends far beyond what we would today consider Europe. In other words, so here's Europe, and Russia goes all the way over to here. That means that Russia spans truly continental aspects and vast cultures. And so as you read the text, really think about that and those implications. All right. Now, the other piece that I want to throw in here is that we can call Europe Europe because of some of its cultural characteristics. And most pronounced of those are its languages. One of the interesting things about Europe is that many of the languages that we in the United States often conceive of and are often taught in our schools are European languages. Very seldom that you see schools teaching, at least at the elementary and high school level, non-European languages. And so the languages, the Indo-European groups that we see in Europe are part of their cultural history. So we think about the Romance languages, those are the Latin-based languages, and the Germanic languages, defining pretty much all of Western Europe's languages. And then we begin to see this divide into the Slavic groups. And again, the Slavic groups are what Russian is. And then, of course, we move into the Indo-Iranians as to the south, and the Hellenistic, the Greek languages. But languages divide Europe from the rest of the Eurasian landmass. The other way that we can see this is Europe historically has been a Christian region, and in that Christianity there was a divide, and that is between the Orthodox churches and the Catholic churches. And in fact, that divide, not surprisingly, kind of went along these margins where to the west, where the Catholic Church dominated, retained its Europeness, and as you moved farther and farther east, you moved away from that Catholic Western European influence. So religion, to some degree, defines, and defined historically, Europe from Asia and from Southwest Asia or the Middle East. All right, now, another way of seeing this contemporarily is in terms of Europe and its alliances. Europe traditionally has aligned with its colonies, most notably the United States and Canada. We can see that, for example, in the NATO or North Atlantic Treaty Organization and the Warsaw Pact, which was the Soviet agreement of cooperation. And again, along those border regions between what is today Europe and Asia were largely along those lines. And of course, Russia was always straddling those two worlds. Okay, that's it for where is Europe, a little bit of why it's there. We'll pick up a little bit of the physical geography of Europe and Russia in mini lecture 2.